Hello, everyone, and welcome to Non-Canon Files number 25 of All You Can Hear podcast. I'll be your host today, Patrick. And joining me today is my crafty co-host.
It is Jonathan Lagan.
And today is part of our quarterly anime reviews. This episode we're talking about the spring release of anime. And we have 6 debuting series we'll be talking to you about today. And our first anime we're talking about today is Tower of God. It premiered Wednesday, April 1st. It is currently streaming on Crunchyroll. And it's about a young man who enters a mysterious tower filled with challenges in order to reunite with someone dear to him. What do you think about this show?
I really liked it. It was one of my favorite out of this batch. I really love the animation. It's like that real sketchy kind of art style. And just the character design overall is really cool. As far as the story goes, like, this seems similar vein to like an isekai, but this one I don't like loathe. Like, I'm able to buy the premise. It's not a complete just like harem type thing yet anyway. But I really like the concept. And I would be very interested to see where it goes. I don't know if I would follow up on it. I'd probably wait till a few episodes come out and see how people feel about it.
Yeah.
Because I know, like, you can always have a strong episode and it just take a fucking nosedive. So.
Yeah, like a very strong beginning and sort of the follow-up doesn't quite match.
Yeah, 100%.
I definitely echo a lot of the things you said. The art style really sort of catches my eye. Like sort of the strong line work in all the characters and sort of the animation and like the very bold contrasting colors they use the very bold palette in any case. It is like a very lush animation, very fluid, and I it does sort of have like an isekai feel. A part of me doesn't feel like it's quite an isekai because it's not one person going to another world, but I guess in a sense he is, because just the main character, Bam, he's transferred into this tower that's essentially like this microcosm in of itself.
Mm-hmm.
And he's trying to reunite with his long-lost friend, Rachel, she's sort of mysteriously transported to the tower as well.
Yeah, but with Rachel, it seems like she's more like trying to seek it out because her goal is she wants to get to the top of the tower and see the stars. Because apparently where they're at, they are not able to see it. And it's kind of unclear sort of the relationship of this tower. And it's very, I don't want to say abstract, but kind of, it's more metaphysical than like concrete. But I think that's one of the things I kind of like about the show. It's kind of this... The setting is kind of this stuck in this weird ambiguity and this fluidity where they could basically do anything with the concept.
Yeah. Because once Bam arrives at the tower, he's met by the mysterious caretaker named Head-On, which is this unusual rabbit marionette-like creature with a ball-ended staff that sort of leads him to sort of the vestibule of the tower, and sort of informs him that whoever reaches the top of the tower receives their wish.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to receive that wish, you have to go through several challenges that are strewn without the tower, and it seems like each floor is like a world or a cosm into of itself.
Yeah, it's... I know this isn't necessarily an original concept. I mean, there's plenty of even anime that have done something similar to this, but I still love it. It really, within the right hands, it can be this great source of creativity, just in outlandish designs. I mean, right now, it was just the first episode. We kind of just got underwater, and then like a grass field, like a savanna type thing.
And speaking of the water level, this is the main character's first challenge, called the Great White Eel and the Steel Ball, excuse me. whereas he has to get past this eagle, which is sort of like underselling what sort of creature this is.
I mean, it's a fucking dragon.
It's like this vaguely humanoid mermaid sea monster.
It reminds me, I can't remember which Final Fantasy, but it's one of the Final Fantasy versions of Leviathan.
Yeah, because the best way to describe it, it looks, has like a humanoid upper half and like a kind of like a serpent's tail and like kind of like a pterodactyl like head, but also has like these long flowing like fins, like you would see from like like a lionfish or like some of these more like fanciful tropical fish. And the water and the beast is separated from the character from this massive iron gate. And he's sort of like, in order to progress in this level, you have to break this giant black ball that the eel is guarding. And so he's sort of figuring out what to do, but he's met with a very brusque princess and her assistant, her attaché.
Yeah, and I was a little confused on sort of the relationship between the princess and her family and the caretaker. So, like, I don't know if I just missed something, but because at least the way their interactions went, it seemed like the princess sort of had some level, and her family had some level of power over the caretaker,
or at least they have some sort of connection to the tower of itself. Because the way they sort of carry on, it seems like the tower it has like this semi-regular occurrence where it will take in people into itself in order to like proliferate this game, getting people to get their wish. But the main character, Bam, he's sort of special in that he gets into the tower himself, where everybody else seems to be they were involuntarily chosen.
Yeah, and it kind of seems like his friend Rachel was too, in a way, even though she was kind of seeking it out. But just sort of like the interaction between the princess and the caretaker, it seemed like there were just the way their conversation interaction carried out. It kind of gave this connotation of like not all the same rules applied to her type thing.
Yeah,
and I could just be misreading that scene.
I definitely think she has some sort of special case because it sounds like she's very familiar with the tower and it has been there before, but it seems like she's been through the game somehow, but she's able to traverse levels at will.
Yeah, and unlike other people, I guess, who have to progress step by step, or floor by floor,
or it's a one-way street for most of the other contestants, but she has some sort of special leeway.
Yeah, and either way, she comes from some sort of lineage because she has this fucking plethora of swords and weapons just at her disposal. And at one point she, and it seemed just sort of out of just curiosity, she gives, Bam is the protagonist's name?
Yes.
Gives him her, it sounds like her ancestral sword.
Yes.
And apparently she has never been able to unlock its power. But, given that this is an anime,
and he's the main character,
he's going to unlock the power. Who the spirit inside is a deity very similar to the princess, but distinct in her own way.
Like they both have this very cavalier and capricious attitude.
Yeah, very very abrasive.
And one thing that's interesting is that every contestant has like these items that can be summoned or like at least revealed at will. Like all the players have this like orb that doubles as like a camera. They're like personal digital assistant basically called a pocket, which is this black sphere that will reveal information when the time is right. And the princess, she has this I guess like this cutlery board of her ancestral swords that she can just make visible at will.
Yeah, and then also they I don't know if everybody has one, but her little simp bodyguard person gives Bam this translator orb, because when they show up, I want to say they're speaking Korean,
because
like there's like very much a difference in the subtitles between what they're saying and what everyone else is saying. So it's like, okay, here's this. Now do you understand me? And I don't know, just like a lot of like, I wouldn't say technology, but a lot of, I think the biggest thing going for this show is the setting.
Definitely, because we will say, speaking of the Korean just a moment ago, this originally was a South Korean webtoon that started way back in 2010. It's been running for a very long time, and this adaptation is sort of like a simulcast release between South Korea and Japan. And I'm definitely definitely interested about where this series goes, because it's been running it effectively for a decade, and wondering like how long the story goes and how expansive this like journey in this mystery is.
Which that kind of worries me about the show, because there is an end goal in mind. Mm-hmm. And I think setting it with a finite amount of episodes, to me, I think like the show, like even 26 would be too much, because at a certain point you're going to start running out of ideas for floors. So who knows? I have not read the web comic, or the webtoon, or whatever it's called. So, I could be completely wrong in that aspect. But yeah, that the fact that it's been running since 2010. Now, unless what they do is like they have like arcs with different sets of characters.
Yes, like it sort of changes perspective, or it may be one of those things that it's been active for 10 years, but whether it's been running consistently for those 10 years,
that is very
true. A difference.
Yeah, because, a lot of things, a chapter could come out like once every couple years. Who knows?
Once a month. I guess what the release schedule is for Korea is very different. But I will say, getting back to the actual plot, the main character, he does sort of overcome the eel trial and progresses to the second floor, which is where he's sort of transported to a meadow, like a grassland.
Yeah. And this, I don't think it opens up, but it has like one of my favorite visual gags of the episode, which is it's kind of showing a bunch of different people in this area, and they all have their different weapons. And one guy, he either has like a spear or sword, and he's walking around and he gets shot with an arrow. And then the arrow guy's laughing, and then he gets shot in the face with a fucking sniper rifle.
That's right, because Homeboy, the main guy, he lands in the field, and he's like, what's happening? And like some big, strong dude with a sword is about to like mash him. And then like a girl on a hill just pumps him full of arrows, and she's like, heh. And then she gets blown the fuck away by a sniper. It was like really kind of jarring.
Yeah, just like that sort of like whiplash. I was like, Jesus, this is bad, but also fucking hilarious.
And then the guy with the sniper rifle, he gets chased off by a giant burly lizard man.
Yeah.
And then this is sort of feel like it's the battle royale for a portion of the game, because they say in this grassland there are 400 contestants, and at a certain time they have to decrease that by half.
Yeah, and then once they decrease that by half, all like those 200 move on to the next level.
And so the main character is now trying to survive until the time is up, while also coming across like the different various antagonistic characters. We do meet what will probably be another essential character. He's just a mysterious white-haired boy with like a business briefcase, but also he has a knife.
Yeah, and he very much seems like the rival character in any shonen anime.
He's very like self-assured and like aloof.
Yeah, and I could easily see this as like at the start of the show, he's definitely probably the strongest character, but then over time, the main character gets stronger and stronger.
Because the main character is definitely a disadvantage now. While he's able to like get the magic of the sword to help him in the first trial. The sword's just willful nature decide you get a freebie this time, but now you're on your own.
Yeah, it's very flippant on when it wants to, or I guess it would be a she wants to come out.
It has the appearance of a woman.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately it's an inanimate object, but
it can choose whatever form it wishes, and I guess because it is just an object and it has like this weird millennia-old spirit residing within it, it can assume whatever form it wants to whoever it wants. So, and just one last thing, wrapping up with it, we're sort of introduced to the larger mystery of the relationship between Bam and Rachel, because we're kind of given like what we assume to be a flashback of a long-haired child trying to break through a stone roof within a cave, and then once that sort of ceiling breaks through, Rachel pulls this child out. And it sort of led to believe that child is Bam. They were somehow trapped in this cave for several years, and Rachel is his savior, essentially.
Yeah. It'll definitely be interesting to see how that relationship develops as the show goes on.
And so, like, why was he so desperate to get back to her, other than just sort of like a life debt?
Yeah, it definitely seems like not even necessarily a romantic connection, but just kind of this like friendly connection, or like this blood person connection.
It's sort of like an adopted family, because
yeah,
we don't know why Bam was like sort of trapped in this cave, and sort of like how Rachel was able to get to him in the first place. So we have like this nice like hook of a mystery on top of the strange universe that exists within this metaphysical tower.
Yeah.
And also one last thing, that fucking rabbit's up to some shit.
Yeah, that rabbit's a little nefarious shit. Even though I really like his design, even though it's very odd.
Yeah, because like we said, it's obviously shaped up a rabbit, but like the rabbit's sort of head is sort of featureless except for like a slit that goes across the entire face. There, except for like two little pockets in the corner, but it sort of switches between like grimacing fangs and like
teeth.
A glaring
eyes.
Eye.
Yeah, it's really weird. Also, his staff is really cool.
Yeah, and also, of course, he's a caretaker, so he has all the information, but we're getting a tease to sort of his greater abilities, because after Bam escapes their first level, head on, the rabbit caretaker just completely obliterates the sea serpent.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder why he's keeping this place up, and if he is the person who's basically running it, why is he wanting to keep this thing going?
What does he gain from keeping this up?
Yeah.
So, but echoing your feelings at the start, I'm definitely intrigued. I'm not 100% on Tower of God, but I'm definitely like willing to give it a few more episodes to see where it goes. I will say, Tower of God, it is probably one of the more highly anticipated anime of this season, because when it debuted on April 1st, it was like a top trender on Twitter that day.
Yeah. And I mean, it's pretty easily accessible, at least in the States anyway. So
I'm definitely intrigued. I'll definitely, like I said, I'll come back to it. It may not be a week for week, but I'm interested.
Yeah, definitely keep fingers on the pulse.
All right. And our next series we'll be discussing is Digimon Adventure 2020, this is a reboot of the original Digimon series, and it builds a brand new story with the Digidestined children. It premiered Sunday, April 5th, and is currently streaming on Crunchyroll.
Okay, this show, I didn't really grow up with Digimon, more of like a Pokemon person, so I don't know, I didn't have a strong connection to this one. I mean, the animation's great, I mean, and the monster designs are all cool. There was just a lot that I kind of my eyes kind of glazed over. It was kind of hard for me to pay attention to this one.
Yeah.
And I imagine, like, if I had any sort of connection to it, I would, be more into it. But I mean, and it's not bad by any means. This one definitely just wasn't my thing.
Yeah.
But I could see people, and especially like a new generation, really liking the show if it keeps up the level of quality, like of animation and I mean, for like a kid's show, the writing's pretty good.
Yeah. I will say I am definitely on the other end of that spectrum. I grew up with Digimon. I still clearly remember the first day Digimon aired in the States, way back in the late 90s.
And then that fucking theme song.
Everybody remembers the US Digimon theme song. And I got like a big nostalgia bite in the new intro where it has like a bit that references the old intro where like has Tai kind of twirled in the air like at the very beginning of the intro where all the kids are spinning as they get sucked into the digital world.
And I will say that the opening to the show is really strong. Like, I mean, you can play any sort of guitar-driven music and I'll probably love it.
Yeah.
But even then, like, it had this nice energy to go along with the visuals.
And it definitely is more like character focus with the intro. It focuses heavily on Tai and Agumon. Well, it obviously gives you the rest of the children. It sort of focuses on them as the main character. And that's what I will say is maybe a strength that this reboot has over the original, is that it focuses just on mainly on Tai and Agumon as they sort of deal with the sort of insurgence of the digital world onto the real world. Because with the OG series, you're sort of given all 7 children their Digimon and then their Digimon's evolution within the first episodes. So it's like, 21 characters essentially that you're given to in like 25 minutes?
Yeah, exactly. And I could be completely wrong, but it seemed like the first show was kind of was cynically made just as kind of like this cash grab to capitalize on like the Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, like portable monster trend.
Well, definitely like Pokemon and Digimon are definitely not the first to do like, like a collectible monster gimmick, but definitely the ones that sort of like kickstart, like really popularized it.
Yeah, especially in the West.
And it's definitely like it has like a very like deep-seated like love, the American fan base. And while Digimon never quite had its sort of level of fame that Pokemon did, it still has a very strong, because they're able to redo the first season with an art style that's pretty much exactly the same as the OG season.
Yeah, it just seems like it's cleaned up HD for the modern age.
Just updated.
And this definitely, to me, just the impression I got from it felt unlike like it's sort of like the My Little Pony effect. Like, and then I don't watch the show, but this is what people say, Like in the 80s, the My Little Pony was just a toy commercial.
Yeah.
But a lot of people loved that concept and then, went and became fans of it as kids. And then when they got older and were making shows, they tried to turn it into this well-beloved franchise that has a pedigree of quality. And this definitely felt I could definitely kind of tell the passion behind it. And I know that's kind of an intangible measure, but and it could just be like, I could be completely mistaken, but like I said, it just seems like the first show, like even as a kid, it kind of felt pandering to me in a way. And I don't know, and I could just be me and a little fucking asshole. But like it definitely felt like more like a cynical cash grab, a toy commercial. And granted, all those shows at the end of the day were toy commercials, but I don't know.
There's definitely some that have more of a balance between like a more sincere content where they're just like, this is just designed to sell the next new thing.
Yeah.
But I will say, like I did really enjoy this episode. It does give you the characters in a setting you're familiar with, but also it is not in any way like a completely rehash of the original series because it focuses mainly on Tai and sort of in Agumon and sort of his, for now, solo adventure into the digital world to fight, the growing, viruses in there. And I will say maybe it's like a little criticism I have of this new series. I do feel fairly underwhelmed by how they sort of reimagine the digital world in this one. It's very like, like pixely and like these sort of like sheer monolithic cubistic towers and like data streams, which seems very sort of bland compared to what in the original series we had like this, like not chaotic, but like this sort of mishmash of real world look like forest runs into like a city, runs into like a subway station, runs into a beach, like these sort of like haphazardly attached, physical spaces because it's like this weird amalgam of the real world, a facsimile in an artificial one. So like that to me that is a bit of a detriment. And there is like a little bit I could feel like filler in the episode where it's just Agumon like shooting fireballs at the viruses.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's probably why I kind of glazed over because there's not a lot that really happens.
Because you get like the basic idea of they have to stop the viruses from messing up the train system because Ty's mother and sister are on a train that's on a collision course with all the rest of the subway trains. Yeah. So you get that drama, but like you also get like 10 minutes of them just like shooting fireballs, fighting these little like blob Digimon, which is fine, but it kind of feels like because they're only focusing on one character, it kind of feels a bit hollow until you get to like the big climactic battle where Agumon digivolves and fights the big virus. Yeah, which is a really cool sequence because it's like that's where they put all their animation in, where he digivolves, has this like beam struggle between the boss virus of the episode.
Yeah, and it definitely seemed like we have this moment, but we need to save it for the last part, like the third act of the episode.
Yeah. So while there is some nice action, I do kind of miss that we don't have like an ensemble that we get to interact with like we did in the first series. But maybe as it goes on, we're sort of introduced to like the next several episodes be sort of focusing on the next kid in the line.
Yeah, and I could easily see them do that. And I mean, like you said, the first episode, they introduced all these characters at once. So I imagine they were trying... This was kind of a way to mitigate the audience possibly feeling overwhelmed.
Because it would definitely be sort of hard to keep up if this is like a young child introduced to a new show, and it just drop a bunch of human characters and a bunch of monster characters and just like... God help you try to remember a name.
Yeah, but I mean, hey, kids are smarter than we give them credit for. Shit, like a bunch of kids our age, fell in love with this show.
So I definitely feel like it's, for me, it's definitely one I'm going to keep up with. Not only because I just love the old series, but also they're taking it in a very interesting direction because, spoilers for everything, spoilers for every first episode for every series we'll be talking about today. But also the second episode preview for Digimon is buck wild because like they're essentially adapting the first Digimon movie for the next episode, which is like crazy.
Like how are they? It sounds like they're going to do the exact opposite of this episode, where this episode's kind of meandering and padding, had a bunch of padding. This one is just like, fuck you, an entire movie in 22 minutes.
Yeah, because we have like Tai meeting up with Matt in the next episode in Garurumon. And they have to stop a virus from hijacking intercontinental ballistic missiles from destroying the world from America's nuclear silo.
It's like, wow, that is a high escalation of stakes there.
From just like them messing with like the train's rotation to like fucking nukes.
And didn't like the next episode title like War Zone?
Yeah, because,
or something like
because
that.
It's the second episode is called War Games.
War Games.
Because the first Digimon movie is called Our War Game.
Okay.
Because like it was just like again crazy because they're adapting the first movie in the second episode. So they're ramping up real fast with this series. So I'm definitely intrigued to see where it goes from here.
Hell yeah.
And the next series we're talking about is called Listeners. It's about a young boy who toils every day, living in a squalid junkyard town when he runs across an amnesiac girl who is lost in the rubble. And this premiered Saturday, April 4th, and is currently streaming on Hulu.
Okay, and this show, I like with Tower of God, I really like the concept, except, unlike Tower of God, I'm not a huge fan of the character designs in particular. I really like the world design and then the ultimate mech design. Like, that was really cool.
Yeah.
But it's just something about their weird round faces. It kind of is uncanny and it freaks me out.
Because this story follows Echo Ray, the main character. He's like we said, he's a young boy, sort of like makes a living, like digging through and finding like
spare parts and basically this garbage island.
Yeah, basically this whole town, this economy is based around sifting through the junk pile that the town's built around, and sort of like the mayor of the town really tries to like keep people down and like don't try to aspire anything other than what your station in life is.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of the first episode of the Gurren Lagann in that way.
Yeah.
Except it doesn't have the ounce of charisma and is not as fucking bombastic as that show is. But it definitely is that very similar, you have to stay on this path, and then they meet this girl who disrupts everything, and then they leave.
Because this girl that he finds in the rubble she's very interesting in that she has like this like snow white hair, and probably the most interesting thing about her is that she has an audio jack implanted on her hip.
Yeah.
Which is a very telltale factor of the mech pilots in the world, which are called players, and their giant mechanical suits they call equipment. And Echo is very much enamored with the sort of the world of players and their equipment. It's sort of like it seems to be like a contest of skill, but also there just seems to be like some weird power struggle between the mech pilots and sort of the world at large, because a cataclysm sort of befell the earth in this world where the mech pilots kind of started a great war, started a great like disaster, and that's kind of is what is responsible for why everyone's living in sort of like a very impoverished state.
And even just like listening to you explain it, it really is a little muddled, because it's like, are these people like supposed to be
like the pop stars and celebrities?
The pop star celebrities, they are the heroes, but then they're like kind of ostracized at the same time. And I'm not saying you can't do that, but I know I was kind of like, okay. And it also, I kind of also got the impression that it might have just been that mayor,
because he definitely is the most he's vocal against the mech pilots.
Yeah, and especially because the reason they have the mech pilots in the first place are to fight these fog monster things
called the Earless.
Or
Earless.
Or yeah, exactly. And it's like, I mean, without those mech pilots, those things would destroy communities. But so it's like counterintuitive for you to be such a dick. But I guess interaction, people do things for irrational reasons.
That's right. And because I guess the problem is, once you give like a very select group of people an extraordinary amount of power, there's no telling that they'll do the right things with that power.
Exactly. And I think a lot of it just has to do with whatever this event was. One thing about the show I was surprised with was the amount of product placement from guitar amps.
Yeah, because
what ultimately becomes the amnesiac girl's equipment is a Vox amp.
It's a legit Vox
name brand amp. And then in the credits it had like Marshall and I think PV and some other brands. I was like, as someone who's a guitar player, it's like, oh fuck, that's cool.
Because it just reminded me of another anime we watched probably last summer. It's about it was the the gay baiter one, where it has like the one boy who's like really aloof and he plays guitar, but he meets like the kind of like spacey boy that also has a guitar, and they kind of like become like a very close friendship.
I don't know anything about that.
Well, that anime had like a very prominent name brand guitar product placement within the show.
Yeah, and then Carol and Tuesday also had like Gibson and
Yeah.
things like that. So it's like, what are they doing to get this product placement?
And we mentioned that Echo has the Vox Amp because he was able to make that in secret from just collected stray parts. And sort of, he has to sort of keep a kibosh on his enthusiasm about the mechs and sort of the players, because the mayor is like very strict, and any sort of mention, however casual, however innocuous, he sort of shuts it down immediately, because he has his goon smash the TV that was playing the mech fight.
Yeah, and then his sister runs this like bar, and she's like, God damn it,
because she's able to appease the mayor and his goon by giving them free beer, which allows Echo and the nameless girl to escape at the room and sort of like just get away. The girl is sort of like, she's very like, I guess, feisty, and like she's obviously needs that. She doesn't know why he's kind of getting all hot and bothered. It's like, oh, you know, you're a pilot. You love these mechs, and just kind of like, I don't really know anything. I just woke up and I'm here to eat your food and bounce.
Yeah, and that brings us to like the scene where she wakes up, and it's the stereotypical guy. It's a misunderstanding. I swear I'm not a weirdo, but this is an excuse to get TNA. Like, it's that very much that like harem or isekai trope where they like I don't remember like the context of this episode because it's been a couple days, but it was like he was like looking at her or like accidentally, I think he was touching her like audio jack, because I mean he was just enthusiastic about it, but she's like, what the fuck?
It's like I never seen that hole before. That's so cool. And she's like,
oh yeah, and it was really suggestive, and I'm like,
well, there's another sort of suggestive moment, because like he keeps like this like pocketbook about the equipment and players like hidden on his person, and then when they go up to his room, he like, it looks like he's taking off his clothes, but that's where he keeps his book. And then she like freaks out, it's like, oh no, you're trying to have sex with me? And it's like, no, this is my book. She's like, oh okay, I guess we're not having sex.
Yeah, and it's, I don't know, that's just one anime trope I really don't like. Not even just because of the implications of it all, but just it's in it fucking everything. It's
the weird thing where anime are like contractually obligated to have some like sexual innuendo situation like once per episode, unless they get canned.
Yeah, and like when Evangelion was criticizing that scene in the 90s, like the mid 90s, it's like, why are we still doing this?
I guess it's because like it might be the thing where it's so proliferated that it's gone past like the postmodern like thing of it. It just circles back around,
where it goes from sincere to ironic, then back to sincere, and that kind of brings the show down for me to where like if this show does catch on and it does have a huge fan base, I might come back to it. But
I will say it's compared to some of the other shows on the list, it's definitely not as like,
it's not, and the
fan servicey or like sexy.
Yeah, and it's not terrible. Like, it's not bad by any means. It's actually really good. It's just, I don't know. Similar to Digimon, I was kind of like indifferent, apathetic towards it.
And we do get like a big climactic moment in this episode, because the Echo and the girl, they run off to the junk pile where the monsters are attacking the earless. I guess until otherwise they're called earless. And I will say the mechs in the show are very intricate and interestingly designed, whereas the bad guys are just like these weird black blobs that kind of look like these serpent ghost mice. They have like mice like heads,
yeah,
and like claws.
Yeah, that definitely was not very inspired. and it's contrasted to, like you said, the mech designs, which like makes just the contrast makes the fucking earless designs just worse. They're just really boring.
Yeah.
But like in the intro, like with most anime OPs, it shows the characters to come, and a lot of like the supporting cast later to come, their designs look really cool. So it's like, I don't know, like,
I guess
someone dropped the ball there.
I guess there is a possibility that if these sort of like giant mice monsters, maybe they're just like the basic bitch monster, and there are more interestingly more designed bad guys that we just haven't been exposed to yet.
That is very true. And I mean, and we're judging everything by the first episode, and that could easily change.
Because we've only ever seen the first episode of all these series, so whatever progress comes, that's still for us to see. And the fight with the mech was cool because the boy, he finds like an aux cord, sticks it into the girl's port, and the Vox.
God, that just sounds so fucking wrong.
There's definitely some innuendo there, of course.
He sticks the aux cord into her plug,
and then like the Vox just like breaks the laws of like
any sort of physics,
and it transforms into this giant mech that they both sort of ride, and she controls it because she's the player. She has the aux cord, but he sort of like hers the support on the machine, and it has like I think it has a really cool, I like this like white and silver design. It has like these big speakers coming from the elbows. They sort of like shoots like green energy blast from.
Yeah, like I really love the monster design, and like the animation and the actual fight scene was really cool.
Because the mechs are all CG, and the rest of the series is traditional animated.
God, I didn't even notice. If we're being honest,
I mean, it's a in terms of like CG integration for a series, this feels very good.
Yeah, definitely. It is. It's not. I guess it's not totally seamless, but like
It's a more fluid integration.
Yeah, and I mean that could be I just wasn't paying as much attention to it, but it was like, oh, okay, because like that was definitely the part where I kind of perked my ears up, because it was like, oh shit, actually cool shit happening on screen, and not just this kind of like cliche. Okay, we know where this is going. Get to the good shit type.
Yeah, let's get to the big mech fight. So I think I did like Listeners. It's not high up on my list for this season, but I am intrigued. I am willing to check it out. I'll definitely sort of come back to it maybe once a few more episodes have built up. But I definitely like it.
Yeah.
So, all right, heading over to the next series, we have Appare-Ranman, which is about an eccentric genius and a high-strung swordsman that are bound together in a big journey across the American West. And this premiered Friday, April 10th, and it's currently streaming on Hulu.
I really like this show so far. Like, just like that opening scene alone where, like, I jokingly was like, oh my God, are we about to get anime wacky racers?
Because, like, it's anime wacky racers because, like, the opening scene is sort of like a bit of a flash forward. You have, like, the main character, Appare, and his associate, Kosame, and sort of like they're in this steampunk wooden and steel like race car, and there's a few other like very individualistic characteristic vehicles, all piled up by very extravagantly designed characters.
Yeah,
and they're part of this big race across the American West, because it takes place in America, like a alternate history, like 1910s America.
Or like I got sort of the gist of like late 1800s, that sort of area.
Like late 1800s, early 1900s, that sort of era. Because later in the show you see like a shipyard. It makes me think like Titanic era.
Yeah, definitely.
And sort of Sorano is very like aloof in a way that he's like very focused on his science and his creations, and Kosame's obviously his sort of counterpart, his more grounded individual who's sort of like just sort of swept along and did like the
He's very high strung, type A, and he's just kind of through just serendipitous circumstances gets wrapped up in this little adventure.
and we to start the episode after the opening sequence, where it has sort of like you see all of these like very crazy characters. Like you have like this like cool hip hop guy with like DJ. Then you have like these mysterious like mariachi duo and like this ginger ambiguous character like a little sailor outfit. I think it's a boy.
Maybe
Judging by the voice, and there's like a very freely dressed girl, and they all have like very like wacky vehicles. Like, you know, one car's purple and has like a mouth and lips on it.
Yeah, exactly. But getting back to sort of like that gender fluidity thing, like the main character Appare, I think he definitely is more effeminate. And like when I saw it, like initially saw it, I was like, oh, that's going to be a cool female character, and I was like, oh, you know, I was pleasantly surprised
because like he's obviously he has sort of the like the face markings I sort of associate with like traditional Japanese theater and kabuki. We had like these like colors on like under his eye and the corner of his mouth. So he's definitely has like a mishmash of like Eastern and Western sort of apparel and sort of like presentation on his character.
Yeah, and he just does his thing and doesn't give a fuck. Because
like Kosume is sort of, I guess, strong-armed into like trying to get a reign on Appare, because Appare he's part of like a very prominent noble family, but he's sort of so focused on his sort of experiments that he's in danger of being sort of like cast out from the nobility.
Yeah.
And they're sort of using Kosume, who is like very disciplined and has a high standing from his kendo school. They're sort of like use that ability to sort of temper Appare's sort of like more wild side.
Yeah, because what's the high strung character's name again?
Kosume.
Yeah, he's definitely more like tradition. We must do things this way. And there's this flashback scene because like the main reason he's apprehensive is because there was a little incident early on when Appare was sent to his school, and he goes to, they go to spar, and Appare has built this like net catcher out of his kendo stick, and it's like boop, and I was like, it's one of those. It's like, I mean, that makes sense. That's one way to do it. But
like he won, but he didn't win like the kendo way.
Yeah, the honorable way, and it just eats old homeboy up.
So, and then when Kosume has to go like grab Appare after his last sort of big incident, because he caused like a big wreck with his last like steam driven missile. It blows up the noble's garden. He gets locked in jail. So Appare just like doing the algebra quick maths in jail, where all like the hoodlums and the riffraff are like, "Yo, you better."
And we're about to fuck you up, and he's like, "I'm about to leave," and just unlocks the lock, opens the door, shuts the door, closes the lock, and just walks out.
And it just like can't be bothered by the world around them.
Yeah, and all the inmates are just so dumbfounded. They're like, "Wait, what? Did that just happen?"
And then eventually Kosume is able to track Appare down to his secluded studio and his like his family's garden, and it's full with like equations and books and contraptions, because when Kosume gets there, just this little doll comes out with a cup of tea, then it starts flying in the air and it explodes in Kosume's face.
Yeah, and then he's like, and Kosume's like, "What the fuck, dude?" And then Appare's like, "Damn it, it didn't explode on time. Gotta make some adjustments." And it's like,
and so Kosume's like, it's just like he's like talking to a wall with Appare. He's like, he needs to settle down, become more noble, be more humble. And then Appare is just having none of it. He's just like, I'm doing my own thing. I don't care.
Yeah, and it's sort of that frustration you have when you're talking with anyone who's hyper focused on a certain thing, and that's like all their attention is focused on.
And sort of but at the same time, Appare has a different side of him. Like, he does feel like no one understands him, and no one's willing to give them the time of day to try to understand.
Yeah, so it really, his devil may care attitude makes sense, and like you said, we're saying to his vulnerability when they get stranded out in the sea, or no, it's when they first meet, and he was talking about this was the book that inspired me, and it's a
Jules Verne novel.
And it's a Jules Verne novel.
About it, I forget the name of the novel, but it's where they travel to the moon, and that's sort of like his inspiration for all his sort of machines and science, and what makes Kosume sort of kind of break through that exterior, that veneer that Appare has, is that he prostrates himself before for Appare, and it's like, please let's try to figure this out together, and like as sort of like immediately weary of Appare's sort of like extravagancy, he is sort of, but he does sort of really humble himself to Appare in order to try to make something work.
Yeah, and then Appare kind of makes this offhanded comment. He's like, "No one showed me this level of respect before," and it's kind in the scene, it's kind of played more for comic relief, but it does lead to that sort of interpretation where it's like, oh, well, that's actually kind of sad,
because like you sort of get like a little sneak into the inner workings of both characters, that the Appare has a part of him that wishes to be sort of recognized and respected, and Kosume is not completely bound by just tradition and honor, like, because someone of his stature in his position wouldn't sort of prostrate himself so much to Appare like that. Like, he gets on his hands and knees and says,
like,
please,
bows to him.
Let's figure this out.
Yeah, and then a lot of like Kosume too is he has a lot of external pressure from all the nobles around, because they're like, you need to rein this guy in or else, and he's like, well, fuck. I mean, even though like his humbling is kind of motivated by like, I don't want to like fucking die or be in jail. It's still kind of. There's still a level of sincerity to his character.
Because he doesn't want Appare to be killed either, because Appare has like all these trumped up crimes against him, that he's sort of like, this is like third strike, you're out, dude.
Yeah. So,
but after that moment, they sneak down to Appare's like secret underground lair where he has his steamboat. His steampunk boat ready to get away. And then sort of as they sort of fumble onto the boat, his sister, Appare's sister, comes out, who seems to be the only other person that's sort of like giving him any sort of kindness or at least attention. And so she gives him her charm pouch. And even though obviously Appare's it's not the person that has a magical thinking personality, but he still takes it to sort of give his sister that peace of mind.
Yeah.
And so, but then like a band of, like I guess a militia comes up, hungry for Appare's head.
Makeshift police,
and they try to get a hold, but then the boat gets away accidentally, and they're spun out to sea, where they sort of have this really funny drama of just like, hey, we're out to sea, and I know you plan to escape, Appare, but do you have like any supplies, any food, or any water? It's like, no, I just wanted to make this boat.
Yeah, and he was, and he's like, why do you not? And it's like, well, I mean, I didn't plan to be stranded in the middle of the fucking Pacific Ocean.
Because it makes sense he wouldn't have like a super detailed plan, because he's so hyper focused on what the initial object is, that anything that would make sense to sort of like attach to it by like anybody else, it just completely passes him by. So like they're stuck out at sea for days and days and days, withering to the elements, when eventually a passing boat picks them up and eventually drops them off in an American harbor.
Yeah, which that was a cool reveal where it was like, oh fuck, we in the Wild West, boys.
And it's really interesting to see this contrast of like cultures, because you have 19 or like ostensibly 1910s America, where it has like
very like Victorian-esque dress where it's very suits and top hats and monocles and really stylized beards, and then he goes like cuts to Appare, and he's just so fucking outlandish.
Like got this big red hair, and with
that's
like,
very uneven, and just
he has like the hoppy coat on top of like messed up suspenders and a shirt. And so Appare himself is like a mixture of East and West cultures. Mm-hmm. And then you have, Kosame, who's like traditionally Japanese, mm-hmm. and they're sort of like these two transplants in a strange world.
Yeah, and I'm very interested to see where this show goes.
It's definitely, because on top of just like all the characters and like what sort of incites the wacky race of anime.
Yeah, because I want to see wacky races, damn it.
And like, and plus having the eccentric meets the high strung, that's not a new contrast, but it's still an enjoyable contrast whenever you see it.
Oh, definitely.
When you have like the two like polar opposites in thinking and behavior, so I'm definitely want to keep up with this one.
Same here.
And coming up next, our following anime is Gleipnir, which is a high school boy with the uncanny ability to transform into a mascot-like monster. Is pulled into a dark and dangerous world after he saves the life of a young girl in a burning building. This premiered Sunday, April 5th, and it's currently streaming on Funimation.
I'm going to be very blunt. This anime fucking sucks. It's just... It kind of elicited a similar reaction to me as Darwin's Game from the winter season this year.
There's definitely some similarities there. We will say before we get too further into this one, content warning, because there's like a lot of sexually dubious content in this episode. So if that's something you're sensitive to, be aware going into this review and to the show itself.
Yeah, but like, even beyond that, I would not recommend the show to anybody. And the thing is it's not as bad as Darwin's Game, but it's similar in the sense of it's overly edgy, really rapey. It's, I don't know. I just could not get into it. And the monster he turns into is like, it's not a bad design, but it tonally contrasts with the rest of the show in such a way where the show is trying to be not necessarily completely self-serious, but definitely a darker, grittier tone. And then you just have this like high school mascot kid that was designed by Hot Topic just running around with a fucking Glock. Like, I cannot take this seriously. It's just too fucking goofy.
There definitely is a lot of clash in terms of like tonality and design in the show. I will say it does have a very nice level of animation. You have the main character, Shuichi. He just seems like a very run-of-the-mill high school character, and
where he's weird, but he's also really ordinary at the same time, except this one thing where he can turn into a fucking mascot.
And that's definitely I guess a mystery into the show, because he's able to transform into the monster right from the off. He has this ability that sort of, it goes unexplained in the first episode. I'm sure they'll elaborate further on, but he doesn't know why this is happening to him. It's just sort of something that suddenly started. This is his X-Men power that he just turns into this Five Nights at Freddy kind of mascot looking character.
Yeah, and I could easily see this being like a metaphor for fucking puberty too, which is fucking stupid.
Because there definitely is like a very pubescent, like unbrained adolescent sexual energy to the show. Because what the first moment of dubious sexual intent comes from when late one evening, Shuichi notices a fire off in the hillside, and when he gets close, we notice a sort of abandoned warehouse is like completely engulfed in flames, and he notices an unconscious girl inside of it. And he sort of belabors the fact of what should I do? I need to turn into the monster to help her. So he transforms, scoops her up. But the first thing we thought was funny is that you see a straight line between the open door to where the girl was laying down in the fire.
Honestly, he probably didn't even have to turn into his beast form. Like, literally, like, where she is, she's, like, at the entrance. Like, he could walk in there, drag her out, and be fine. Also, like, for some reason, her, like, the top of her top is unbuttoned, like and showing her brassiere.
Yeah, like, her shirt is undone to the point where her boobs are popping out, and you see her lacy pink bra. And so, like, he's like, uh-oh, titties, but also, like, when she wakes up, what if the building's on fire? So, like, in another moment of just, like, weird, unexplained decisions, where, like I said, it's a straight beeline from the entrance to the girl, completely not blocked off of anything. And he just turns around and just punches a hole through the wall to escape.
Yeah, that is further than the entrance. And I'm like, what? Why? And on top of that, he's just once he gets inside the burning building, he is taking an exorbitant amount of time, even for anime time. And I mean,
just
sit there and sort of what do I do? What do I do?
Just like painfully ruminating on like the decisions he's making in this like inferno. And so anyway, he saves the girl. He drops her on the ground. And he's sort of like, whew, good thing, that's over with. And but he's also like, uh-oh, her boobies are out. And then this is where it gets really uncomfortable. For whatever reason, it's like he reaches down and like pulls off her panties halfway.
And then he recoils. He's like, oh no, I can't do that.
This is bad.
This is bad, which I guess is a good thing, but like, why is this here?
Yeah.
Type of thing. It felt like a cheap excuse to get TNA and a very gross excuse to get one too.
It's very questionable why they decided, if they wanted to do fan service, why did they do fan service this way?
Yeah, like there's ways you can do fan service without it being offensive like this or problematic.
Yeah. So anyway, he runs away. He goes to school the next day. It's like, well, she was unconscious, so there's no way she'll find me. And then, bam, bitch shows up at his locker. It's like, ha ha, I got your phone. We need to talk, boy.
Yeah, and she was like, she basically bullies him into turning into the monster because she was like, this monster tried to sexually assault me, like you would think a normal person would do. But then she like tries to, but she also wants to either become a mascot or like be a part of this like weird fucked up game thing that the mascots are a part of. Because
she has this golden coin that's connected to this monster, because he doesn't know that there are any other monsters out there but him. But she obviously is included into this bigger world, and this coin is connected to like this strange vending machine that we started at the start of the show, where you see an unseen character from their POV put a coin into the machine and a person comes out of it. So there's definitely some weird trickery going on with these coins and a larger, darker scheme evolved around them.
Yeah.
So homegirl, who calls herself Claire, takes Shuichi back to her top floor apartment, where she decides to immediately get undressed.
Yeah.
And being very like coy, was like, oh, it's so hot, I need to take off these hot, sticky clothes, and then like they do a close up on her boobs, where just like her t-shirt's gone translucent, like it's a napkin covered in chicken grease.
That is a description I never thought I would hear, and hope I never hear again, Pat. Thank you.
So like homeboy's getting all hot and bothered while she like strips in front of him, and
he's like trying to hide his boner and shit.
just like, this isn't good. I don't want to be peeping. And then she's dressed, but it's still pretty revealing, like booty shorts and like a halter top or something. And then but the weird thing is, like, she's mad of what he did or almost did to her, but she's being very, like, abrasive and manipulative to him.
Yeah, because it almost seems like she doesn't care about what he tried to do. She's just using this as leverage.
Like she does, like you said, like. This is just an excuse for her to
blackmail him.
Because like she's basically saying, if you don't play along with me, I will tell people that you tried to assault me, and I will spread the photo of you turning into a monster.
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh no, don't do it."
And then all of a sudden, another girl shows up at her top floor bungalow, and she breaks into the door and starts whipping ass. She just beats the shit out of him.
Yeah, and she starts. It looks like she's starting to turn into a creature too, or something.
Because like she goes to try to attack Claire, this unnamed assailant woman. She goes to try to attack Claire with a knife, and then homeboy Shuichi just like transformed into a mascot mode, unseen, unheard, and restrains her. And then Claire's like, bitch, she ain't gonna get me. And she tries to like turn the tables on her, but then turn tables back, and the assailant girl monsters out. So her arms and legs get all like muscular and clawed out, and she escapes. And then which I guess will lead into like the next episode where Claire and Shuichi try to team up to fight this girl.
Yeah, and I don't care what happens next.
And I will say, I read the first volume of the manga late last year, just kind of like, this is weird and interesting because just, a little bit of sport, because like there's a lot in this show that I think is interesting and cool, like the whole like monster design, and like the fact that when Shuichi turns to a monster mascot, Claire what happens, she'll unzips his body and gets into it and sort of like controls him from within.
Yeah.
But what makes it so hard to recommend is that there's a lot of weird sexual stuff, and like I said, she becomes much more sexually aggressive towards him. Like basically, like,
and from what you've described to me, it's off air, it sounds like it was less than consensual.
It definitely, like, he's definitely uncomfortable with the fact that she's being sexually aggressive towards him. Like there's a point later on in the comic where she kind of has him pinned against the wall, and she like grabs his dick and it's like kind of like forcing him to play along. And the whole thing where she inserts herself into his body and makes him fight against his will is really sexually weird.
Yeah, and I mean, there's nothing wrong like with having any sort of sexual content in anything.
No, not at all.
Like, I mean, we're all people, we're all adults, we love sex, but like there's definitely a fine line where like I think the show shouldn't exist? Not necessarily, but like at the same time, I mean, it should be criticized because it is very uncomfortable.
Yeah, this will definitely not be for everyone, just in terms of like that alone. And spoiler alert, it does get very violent later on, and it's sort of this weird sort of like quasi horror series. So if I do recommend it, it's a very cautious recommend. Like it's going to be very individualistic how you feel about the content in terms of violence, in terms of sexuality. and that's up to you. I'm not saying, like we said, we're not saying this show shouldn't exist or shouldn't be made. It's just this content isn't for us necessarily.
Yeah, and I don't think it's really supposed to be for most people either. But like, you know,
you like what you like. You know, it's your like.
No judgment. It's just it definitely made us feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's not what I'm looking for in an anime. Even as much as I love some of the other concepts, like if it kind of focused more on the monster fighting, that would be pretty cool. But this episode seemed kind of just focused on like weird, sexy stuff.
Yeah, and like you said, if it had more to offer, like there are definitely like problematic shows or any sort of medium I am unapologetically a fan of, but those things usually offer either something that you can't see anywhere else, or just the positives of that thing outweigh the negatives.
There's enough to counterbalance what some people might find objectionable.
Yeah, and like my personal example is Kill la Kill. I fucking love that show, but at the same time, I understand there's a lot of very, very problematic things in that show, and I could understand completely why someone wouldn't watch it.
So, much the same way, like at best, a cautious reprimand for Gleipnir. Your mileage may vary for this.
Yes.
So, moving on to our final anime of the episode is B&A, Brand New Animal. Which premiered Saturday, March 21st. It is currently only streaming in Netflix Japan, but it's set in a world inhabited by humans and human-like animals. The oppressed beastmen seek safety and refuge in a segregated city, but their troubles are not far behind them.
Yes. Speaking of Kill la Kill, this is Studio Trigger and directed by the guy who wrote both Gurren Lagann and Kill la Kill. So, you know it's going to be hype as shit. Like, it's just going to be fucking off the wall and crazy. But it's definitely... this first episode really got me hyped. I mean, I don't know if I can say anything smart about it other than that was fucking cool.
Yeah, because, like, the first thing I said after this was over was, like, this was hype as shit.
Oh, totally. And I mean, you know, we saw Primare last year, and goddamn, it was hype as shit.
And when the show opens up with a red hooded character trying to break into an ATM, where he sees some thugs kind of paint over a poster like promoting human and animal, you know, I guess coexistence.
Yeah.
And so this girl, who we learn is a raccoon, most probably a Tanuki character, is stealing away on a bus, where the human militia finds her, and they sort of engage in like hot pursuit.
Yeah, and she then, you know, right as the moment she's about to be brutalized and killed by this mob, she is then saved by another beast man who is not a weasel but a mink. She very much wants to make that distinction.
She's very clear on the point. She is not a weasel, and so she unleashes her animal companions, a canine animal and a boar, as they sort of just run roughshod over the human extremists and just whip their ass. And then, but also, she's helping your raccoon girl, but also she's kind of an extortionist.
She's like, I'll help you for, you know, some sort of compensation. Which, like, you know, at the beginning of the show, it's kind of made to think like, oh my God, this is going to be, you know, this utopia that I'm going to, where I can escape all the human violence. And then immediately she is confronted with a lot of the violence of the beast people as well.
So it's sort of like, while it is on paper a safer city for beast humans to live, there has some very ugly real world uh, complications that not everybody who lives in the land of sort of like animals, it's like it basically of the same mindset. We're all in this together. There's definitely some self-centered individuals in this sort of animal society.
And then on top of that, there's a scene with the mayor of this town talking with a human leader, and it's like, oh, I'm glad we came to this truce, but the human was like, just remember, the only reason this exists is because I allow it. Y'all better not kick up any trouble or disturb the peace.
Because we sort of shown that there's a lot of human and antagonism toward the Beastmen, how they're very much opposed to them living in this and sharing the same society, and it's a very tenuous piece, if that.
Yeah.
It's like any sort of like rights that Beastmen have is sort of very fragile.
Definitely, and it definitely, like, especially if you've seen like Gurren Lagann or Kill la Kill or Promare, it definitely deals with a very similar themes of being marginalized and overcoming that marginalization with a synthesis of working with everybody and not this binary way of thinking. So and that already shows up with the sort of main ideological conflict between Raccoon Girl and Wolfman.
Yes, because when Raccoon Girl gets to the city, she sort of is at first intimidated because all the animals are just sort of skulking in the shadows, and they turn on the lights and it's just a bitchin' party. It's just like this big block party. Everybody's having a good time, and she bumps into this wolf man who's crying, just like, "Why are you crying, man?" And it's just like he's sort of overwhelmed with the fact that Beastmen are able to like live in peace and have this moment of happiness, where so many are persecuted in this world. So she's like, okay, he's a little weird, but I'm gonna have a good time anyway. So she goes around eating, drinking, having a good time. She bumps back into the mink woman, and sort of like, just like, oh, I guess you didn't give you all your money. I guess you're backhanded just like me.
Yeah, and then she uses that as a front to where one of the mink's minions pickpockets her, the little Raccoon Girl, and then Raccoon Girl is trying to look for this, look for the pickpocket, and she runs into this base. It's like this pillar for this giant like Megatron teleprompter thing.
Yeah, there's this big structure that sort of supports this giant television screen that's sort of playing these different videos, which is funny because there's a split second when one of the videos is another Studio Trigger series, Inferno Cop.
Oh fuck! I did not see that.
Yeah, it's a split second, but if you've seen Inferno Cop, it's for free on YouTube. It's like 10 minutes, and it's just batshit crazy. It was made for $0, and it's inspired by the Studio Trigger team just playing around with Marvel action figures.
Yeah, it was fucking cool. It's fucking hilarious.
Imagine if, just to give you a sense of what Inferno Cop is, imagine if Aqua Teen Hunger Force mixed with anime and Marvel superheroes, and you get the gist.
Yeah.
It's that kind of like cheap, like, low budget animation, but all the insanity. But anyhow, while she's sort of like wandering around in this structure, she sees like a maintenance man sort of looking very shifty and kind of like walking underneath, and he darts off and just like, what is that? And she kind of remembers she's looking for a pickpocket and hits the beam in frustration, and then the whole thing starts collapsing in on itself after a big explosion.
Yeah. And initially they think it's the little Raccoon Girl because she punched it.
She was there when the thing collapsed.
Yeah, but then they quickly realized that it was actually the shifty maintenance man, who turns out to be part of this group who's working with the humans.
Like, because they're like this animal mercenary group, and they were sort of paid off by human bidders to sabotage the sort of the peace and tranquility of the animal city. And the Wolfman is like, he's very much pro Beastman. Humans and anyone associate with them, they're not allowed. It can't be tolerated. So he goes on to fight the trio of mercenaries: a deer, the I guess the other wolf, and a lion. And he just pretends to wreck shit.
Oh my god, the fucking hype is shit.
And it's really hard to describe Studio Trigger action because it's just frenetic, balls to the wall, crazy. Because like he's just tearing everybody's butthole wide open and just like kicking the ass. It's so cool. Like it's Studio Trigger animation at its best.
Yeah, and 100%, and it's a definitely different style of animation than what they usually do, but I really enjoy it. The color palette is definitely, it seems a little more pastel.
It's very like hyper saturated, like cyan and magenta, very like sort of like 80s laser sort of aesthetic.
Yeah, definitely. And on top of that, I really love all the character designs. They're just really distinct and they just work really well. And I mean, it's Studio Trigger. They have some of the most memorable fucking character designs.
Because even like the ancillary characters, the background characters are just like they're imbued with so much personality and just imagination that just even the one-off ones like still have like an impact to you just visually, because like even though the mercenary characters, they were a bunch of assholes, they were still really cool.
Especially that lion
because like there's
guy who's he just was fucking swole as shit.
Because that Wolfman, he initially beats him, and then like the deer and the lion, they like hulk up, and like, the lion like gets buff, he shoots out his claws, and the deer like shoots out his horns, his antlers, and they just go to like round 2, and it's just like big crazy, just like
he then just proceeds to rip the antlers off the deer, and it was brutal in a way I wasn't expecting.
Like he just like pulled no punches with these guys, and then he beats up the lion and the deer, and so the other wolf that make this man holds the raccoon girl hostage.
Well, before that, the reason she's there, I mean, also she was like, oh, wait, he's trying to follow the action. But then once she sees the Wolfman just whooping all sorts of ass, and the Wolfman says that they work with humans, they might as well be humans, and they deserve to die. And she's like, no, can't do that. Not all humans are bad. And I really like it establishes right away the two viewpoints of these characters and how they are going to clash later on.
It's like you have the raccoon girl who's sympathetic towards humans, and you have the Wolfman who's extremely distrustful of humans and anyone associated with them. But then in a moment of like heightened emotion, the raccoon girl activates an ability where her tail sort of glows blue and sort of engulfs the area, and she's able to like retrieve the mercenaries from harm. And he's like, what are you doing? You're an animal. Why are you helping them?
Yeah. And
then she drops the bombshell, I used to be a human.
And it's like, wait, what?
And then, bam, credits.
And God, this, like, I will admit, a lot of the shows we watched, even the ones I liked, kind of were really slow. But with this one, it was so frenetic, so fast paced. Like by the time it was over, I was sad. I'm like, wait, that was it?
Like we're already done? Because like Studio Trigger, they're known for speed and their fast pace. So it was 25 minutes, but he felt like it was 15.
Oh yeah, 100%. And it was just
and they fit so much in that amount of time, and it doesn't feel rushed at all.
It doesn't feel rushed, and nothing is wasted. It's perfectly paced, in my opinion.
And so, like, this is for me, like, my favorite of this season's bunch.
Oh, 100%. Like, there's hardly any contest.
And so, like, this was so much fun to watch. I will definitely be keeping up with this. I will find a way to watch it. Mm-hmm. And we like our roommates they're not as exposed to anime as we are. They don't watch as much as we do, but even they were like, "Oh, y'all are watching this? Where y'all watching this? Because I have to watch this too."
Yeah,
but that just sort of goes to the strength of the show.
Yeah, and I mean, it's already getting word of mouth. I mean, it's Studio Trigger, like they're a really well known, established studio at this point, with all of their shows for the most part being at least high quality, if not like fucking excellent.
And definitely like come with a lot of high acclaim and like a lot of like fan momentum.
Definitely.
Because of all the series that we talked about today, it's really B&A and to a lesser extent Tower of God that I've heard about. Definitely B&A is the top runner of this season.
Yeah, and hopefully it will come to the States on like Netflix or something. Because it hasn't Carol and Tuesday came to Netflix now?
Yeah, Carol and Tuesday, it's officially on Netflix. It's been out there for a while now.
Yeah, so it'll probably take maybe 6 months to a year, but
it'll definitely come our way officially that we can watch it and be able to support that official release. And I will say I do think it's funny, like the first like quarter of 2020 is definitely for the furries, because between Beastar and B&A and that Game Grunt music video, Madden and Bullet, there's a lot of anthropomorphic centric animal content for folks out there.
The fucking furries have taken over our media.
So, and we will say, even though our fellow lads Colt and Wenzel weren't able to join us for this one, they were still able to give us their top picks, their top 3 for this season, and we did want to mention that. And let's see, Colt's top 3 for this season are in 1 to 3, B&A, Tower of God, and Listeners. And Wenzel's top 3 were B&A, Tower of God, and Appare-Ranman. So, Jonathan, what are your top 3 for the spring anime season of 2020?
I'll go from 3 to 1 just to be different. Number 3 be Tower of God. I really like the concept. I really like the animation, the color palette, just overall design. I definitely want to keep my finger on the pulse of it. I don't know. I doubt I'm going to watch it week to week. 2, Appare-Ranman. Just the concepts is so cool. And I know I keep saying that for all of them, but really interesting characters, interesting premise. I want to see fucking those wacky races. And I'll definitely be keeping a closer eye on that one. And of course, no surprise, number 1 is Brand New Animal.
Yeah. For me, my third is a little different. Mine is Digimon Adventure. I have such a fondness for the original Digimon series, and this just hit a big nostalgia button for me. And I love this series. I love the characters, and that this will definitely be one I'll be keeping up with. Number 2 is Appare-Ranman. It's just an interesting world, colorful characters, and there's so much like packed into just that first episode that I'm definitely hooked. I'm down for this ride. I want to check out all the cars, check out all the characters. I'm all the way in on this one, and plus I want to find out what's going on with that Prince anime character. Mm-hmm. Because there's a character in Appare-Ranman that's straight up Prince.
No joke, he is fucking Prince, like the former pop star.
Yeah, well, it's definitely either this or Listeners, one or the other. But there's definitely an anime Prince in this season.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Appare-Ranman.
So anime Prince, down for that. And number 1, no surprise, B&A, Brand New Animal. I was just hype as shit. I wanted to jump up and down after B&A. I was stoked. I can't wait to watch more B&A. It is just a blast, and I can't wait for the rest of the episodes to come out.
Yeah, I'm probably going to watch, tomorrow, watch all the rest of the episodes they have.
So definitely. So thank you all for listening. For our spring 2020 anime recommendations, feel free to let us know what you're watching, what you're interested in. We'd love to hear that from you. Be sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe on all of our streaming services from SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Overcast, Spotify, RSS feed catchers. We're on all those. Spread us around. Let us know. We appreciate that. Let more people listen to us. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at AYCH Podcast. You can follow us on Letterboxd and Facebook at AllYouCanHear. You can follow us on twitch.tv/AllYouCanHear. And all of our Twitch streams go up the next day on our YouTube, and that's youtube.com/AllYouCanHear. So also, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at John Lost His Name. Follow my art on Facebook, John Lost His Name Art. And we appreciate you listening. And Jonathan, your plugs.
All right, my name is Jonathan. You can follow me on Twitter at JohnnyBoy24, JONNIIBOI24, and at Letterboxd at JohnOdenson12.
Thank you much for listening. Take care of yourselves. We'll be talking to you very soon.
Bye.
Goodbye.